Sam Kahn of The Athletic. When you're hosting the show by yourself, sometimes you got to make calls on the fly. I did that in my radio days, Sam. You've had a packed week, and today, between personal and professional obligations, for fitting us in, thank you so much for doing that. We always love having you, and would hate to go a week without you. Our viewers and listeners, they adore you too much, Sam. It would be too much for them to take.
It's okay. We had too much going on. I feel like the week was going okay until we started talking about helmet communications and police scanners and all this other espionage that comes with the sport. Then my week, I feel like, got upended about that when that started coming out on Tuesday night.
So, Sam, here's, after reading everything and seeing everything, my view on that situation. All of the headsets, everyone's headsets were compromised and not encrypted. Every single team. Everyone. Texas Tech, in the midst of a 2-game losing streak, took that information, and a small group of their fans, and a couple of them who are well-placed, maybe got a little out of control and thought it was just about them. Am I missing anything there?
Here's what I would say. I think definitely they are the loudest voice in this, and it doesn't seem like anybody else has made it as big of a deal about it. The thing we don't know is, did an opponent use it against another opponent, whether it was Texas Tech or whether it was anybody? I don't know that we'll ever know the answer to that question. The Big 12 said they did their review. I did find it interesting that review seemed to take less than 24 hours. So I have some questions about that. But I will say, I think Texas Tech's biggest gripe, more so than the game, I think, is the fact that they were vulnerable, that everyone was vulnerable, and specifically them, obviously, for essentially a month. Because this issue got flagged on September 28th when they played at AT&T Stadium. And I'll say this, I'll give you this disclaimer as I say this. I talked to a lot of people not connected to Texas Tech and the people across the Big 12 about this. And I was met with some similar reactions in terms of how flabbergasted people were that, hey, this was brought up at the end of September, start of October, and we're here at the end of October and it has not been dealt with. And so that to me is the biggest issue, is the fact that it was flagged at the A&M Arkansas game. The Big 12 and maybe GSD, the helmet communications company, had made it clear that this was going to be rectified, in a swift manner. But also, it was they were led to believe that it wasn't that big of a deal. And then Joey McGuire on Tuesdays got somebody dropping an audio recording of his team's defensive calls in his office. And so I can see why you would get a little alarmed by that, because if just some person can do that, then who else has it? And has it been used against you? And so I think this was a communication breakdown and a logistical breakdown from the Big 12. This should have been handled the week after it was flagged against A&M Arkansas, and not us talking about it a month later.
Well, yeah, okay. True. Very, very, very true. All right, A&M, LSU last week, you were there. Garrett was there. What was that atmosphere like before we even get to the implications long-term of what that means for the Aggies? What was that compared to some of the other A&M games you've been to? And because I know you've been to a lot.
First of all, I'll say the best part of the game was me and Garrett getting to chop it up in the press box before the game.
Yes,
that
sir.
was a lot of fun because we just sat there and talked about Texas football for like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was great. That's and it wasn't just A&M. We were talking about freaking UTSA. It was just like everybody in the spectrum. But yeah, it was definitely one of the better atmospheres. I think the best atmosphere that I've ever been to there at that stadium. I'll give you a list of three. Mm-hmm. 2013 when they played Alabama the second time, when Johnny Manziel's last year there, after they beat them the year before, and it was 49-42 at Kyle Field. There was the stadium hadn't been renovated yet. It still only held 82,000. There was probably 88, 90 in the building, but still probably the craziest, loudest game I've ever been to there. LSU in 2018, which was a 7 overtime game. definitely ranks up there. And then last week against LSU, really, really good. I will say this from an atmosphere standpoint, A&M has done a really good job of keeping the crowd engaged in a way that, like, they have the power and the entrance of the start, which is great. But when they play Mo Bamba, I think that stadium is louder than I've ever heard anything in my life. The press box shakes at an immense level when they start playing that, and the fans go nuts. But I'll also say this, is that was a statement win for that program. I think they needed a big signature win after losing the Notre Dame game to start the season. I think they needed a big win to kind of stamp themselves as serious as a big-time team. And that was a really big one for Mike Elko, a really big one to, especially when you consider that they made the change at quarterback in a tough spot. Like, you don't want to move away from your guy who you believe in, but you also got to win the game. And I thought it was a shrewd move to do. It turned out to be the right move. And I would be surprised if it was anybody but Marcel Reed on Saturday when they play South Carolina.
Yeah, is that just a little bit of gamesmanship there? I mean, they do seem to feel good about either guy.
Yeah, I think there is some gamesmanship, but I do think there are pros and cons to both. It's clear that I think when Marcel's in the game, the run game is just different because the defense has to account for him in the run game. And so that changes the math for a defensive front, and it makes the team more vulnerable. However, they have got to get better as a team passing the ball downfield. They've got to get more consistent. Receivers have got to do a better job of getting open. And we've seen what it looks like at its peak, and that was against Missouri. Connor Wegman looked better against Missouri than I have ever seen him in his 3-year career there. And if they can get that Connor Wegman, then it's worth starting him. But he has not proven this year that we're going to get that Connor Wegman every week. He's also had the injury that he dealt with. I don't know if that's still an issue or not, but that certainly was an issue for the first few weeks of the season. So that's to say that I don't think Wegman is somebody you just dump and just say, okay, we're moving on to Marcel Reed and Wegman's career here is over. I still think he has an asset to that team because of his throwing ability, because when he is comfortable and when he is at his best, he makes them a really dangerous offense. The problem is, and Mike Elko alluded to this on Monday, is that it seems like everything is sped up with Connor when he's in the pocket. He's going through his reads too fast. Everything just seems to be moving. He may be bailing on the pocket too quickly. And so when your processing is going faster than it should be, then you're not going to be effective and you're not going to be efficient in the passing game. And I think with Marcel, you could tell that things were a little bit slower. They only threw the ball 2 times when he was in there, and they're going to have a run-heavy game plan, I think, if he starts. But that's something you have to consider, because if you're going to have to throw the ball to beat a team, the question is, can Marcel Reed do it?
Yeah, that's a big question. And A&M has been through this as a university many times, where the backup quarterback comes in and does something, and then they're kind of confused about what the future for that position is. Sam, elsewhere, Big 12 lies, the big game this week. In the Big 12, I think the biggest one is not Tech and Iowa State. I think it's Baylor and TCU because of the implications for both those teams that have, after rocky starts, righted the ship in a lot of ways. And I think maybe not for TCU as much, but I think for this Baylor team, a loss to TCU would take a lot of the wind out of their sails that they've built up over the last 2 games.
No doubt. This is a game that the winner is going to come out feeling really good, because you will have won 3 in a row, and you'll feel like, okay, we weathered the storm, we righted the ship, the season is not over, we're still moving in the right direction. If you lose, I think more so for Baylor than for TCU, but I think it applies to both. If you lose, then some of those feelings that you had a month ago when things were going really wrong start to creep back up again. If you're TCU, then I think you look at it and you start asking questions about Sonny Dykes again. I still don't believe that we're at the point that he's on the hot seat enough to where the level that Dave Aranda is, and that Sunday would make a change after this season. I don't think we're at that point. I don't think we'll reach that point this year, unless they were to lose the rest of the year. Baylor, on the other hand, we know that Aranda's job security has been tenuous. Getting those 2 wins, I think, has helped them a lot. If you get this one and you're 1 game away from bowl eligibility, I think you got to feel really good about it. If you don't, and you're looking at 4 and 5, and then trying to ask the question, can we get to the postseason at the end of this thing? I think it makes it a little more tenuous. I will say this: I do like what I've seen offensively from Baylor, and how much more effective they've been. I love what I've seen from Sawyer Robertson. I love how much he fits in that offense with Jake Spavital. I think it's a more natural fit. And I think those guys play for Sawyer. I think you can tell there's a leadership quality there that exists, and I think people really go to war for that guy. And that it sometimes it is that simple that changing the quarterback makes all the difference. And mentality across the offense, and if the offense is good, then the defense starts feeding off of it. And I think that in some ways, I think that's applied to the situation from Baylor. And I think having it at home with the 2013 teams being on it and all the positive vibes are going to be around, I think this is a chance for Baylor to really take advantage of it. And if they don't, then it'll be a big letdown.
Tech and Iowa State. Tech, 2-game skid, not the team or the place you want to go to get off of a skid. UCF played one of maybe their best game of the year in weeks and still lost in Ames. Tech's defense has not been good. They gave the game away last week to TCU. They really had them, and in the fourth quarter in a shot where they could put them away, didn't do it. And then, of course, the issues this week, you can feel that stress bubbling over. But they can still score, and Baron Morton's back. I still would not pick them to beat Iowa State because Iowa State's just been so good, but is this one where Iowa State has to be on full alert because they've gotten scared a couple times already?
Yeah, I would still put them on full alert because Texas Tech, I think, has the highest scoring offense in the Big 12 right now, and they can still score points. Even though their defense has been bad, they can still score with just about anybody in this league. I think Baron Morton's health is going to factor into that somewhat. It sounds like mostly soreness, no structural damage. I think they're optimistic about him playing on Saturday. I think even ESPN reported that he was going to start. So I think this offense is still dangerous. And Iowa State does have – this is not a team that is going to out-talent you on a week-to-week basis. Matt Campbell likes to use the term winning on the margins, and that's what Iowa State has to be as a program. I mean, they had to get a last-second drive and get a stop at the end of that game to beat UCF. They had to pull out that close one against Iowa early this year. They were up only 3-0 against Houston at halftime on the road. This is not a team that's going to come out and just put 40 on you, in the first 2.5 quarters. So I do think they need to be on high alert. That said, their defense is what their defense is. John Haycock is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. Iowa State is one of the best defenses in the nation. If they assert their will defensively early, I think they can suffocate Texas Tech and frustrate them to the point to where it doesn't end up being too much of a threat.
Yeah. That will be very, very interesting. Sam, do you feel that there's any outside of Aranda, and then you mentioned Sonny Dykes, do you think that maybe Gus Malzahn, is there anybody else who could be under the gun a little bit here?
Yeah, I can see I saw a little bit of the chatter about Gus. I'm still not all the way there yet, just because I thought they were of the 4 newcomers last year. I thought they were the best of the bunch, and it's a really tall task to go from Group of 5 conference to Power 5. Let's just be honest. It's not easy to do, and I think that program, to me, when I watch them, I know they haven't played one. I think some of that has to do with the quarterback, who they ended, starting KJ Jefferson didn't work out very well. Took them a minute to make a change there. I still think from a talent standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, I still think they've done a really good job. And obviously losing 5 in a row is a red flag. But I wouldn't say that I'd put him on the hot seat to the point that he needs to be run out or anything like that. I still would like to give him some time because this is a different program than what we're thinking when they were in the Group of 5 and when they were in the American. This is a different situation when you're in the Big 12. You're still growing into this. And so I'm not ready to be super alarmed just yet. And I still think his track record as a coach, especially if you go back to his days at Auburn, I still think it still speaks for itself.
Last thing, Sam, do you think Texas got their bye week at the right time, given the last couple weeks and then getting, a charge put into them by Vanderbilt?
No doubt at all. I think they needed it. They needed it from a health standpoint too. Isaiah Bond had been nicked up a little bit. Andrew Makuba had been nicked up, and so that's a couple of key players. Makuba's been really good in the secondary for him. Bond, obviously, probably their most explosive receiver of the bunch. Getting those guys healed up, and I think Quentin Ewers probably he looked a lot better against Vanderbilt, but I still wonder how healthy he was coming back. You certainly the first two starts after he came back, the first early going, it didn't look terrific, and so I think that extra time for him to just take care of his body and get to full strength is important. But yeah, I think it's a really good time for them to refocus for the stretch run because they're going to have some tough games. I mean, I know they've got Florida next week. I know Florida's not what they used to be, but it's still an SEC team. It's still going to be, I think, a little bit of a challenge. And then, of course, they've got the one at A&M at the end of the year. They're going to need a lot of juice. And as Steve Sarkisian said earlier this week, this is a team that hopes to play on January 20th. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking that we're on November 1st, that's still 2.5 months away. That's a long time to be playing. And so I think this break will help. And if they can go through and take care of business the next 4 weeks, get into the SEC championship, then you get that break before the playoff, then that will be super timely as well. But I think this is a team that's still very good. I still have a few questions. I want to see them be more efficient offensively. I want to see them be a little bit more consistent running the ball. But to me, I still think they're a top 5, top 10 team without question. And I'll be interested to see if they go into that A&M game 10-1, and if they do, is A&M 10-1. And buddy, if we go into that game with both,
yeah, that's gonna be insane, Sam. And Sam, what game you got this week?
I am not at a game. I am at home this weekend, and I'll be on our desk editing and reading stories and making sure everybody's got clean copies. So I'm on the other side of the aisle this week.
Oh, well, congratulations. Enjoy your week at home. I was kind of hoping we'd see a Baylor TCU, but
I would have liked to, but we have a couple editors who are out this weekend. They need some extra help on the desk, and I've been doing that a little bit this year. So I said, hey, the week that Texas is on the road, Texas is off and Texas A&M's on the road. If they needed extra help, I was happy to do it. So I'm trying to be a team player here.
Well, thank you so much, Sam. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
All right.